really delighted to have the opportunity to kick off what is a series of workshops across the state of Connecticut this week that are designed to introduce educators from around the state to the new genocide and Holocaust education mandate. In a second, I'll welcome Steve Armstrong from the Connecticut State Department of Education to give you an overview of that law. But before we do that, I think I'll just go through quickly what our agenda is today so you can see what you're in for. Again, this is not designed as a kind of full deep dive into the Holocaust or genocide and how you teach it. It is generally intended to orient you to the new legislation and to get you thinking about how you might begin to approach this. One of the things we're also planning is a series of other activities, professional development and otherwise across the year. So as you begin to think about these things, as you begin to see things that you want more of or are interested in, please let us know as we develop them and then come back and deepen your own learning about that. In particular, I'd like to say that Kathy Fishman is here. There she is in the back from Voices of Hope. She's distributed the book, Tootie's Promise, to you today. They have a wide range of materials, and if you're interested in class sets of those for your students or other uses, please contact her or contact Voices of Hope from inside your book if you can. So thanks again, Kathy. So. Okay, just quickly, here's our agenda for today. You should all have it in the packet that you received this morning. So it is full. We're going to be moving quickly, but we want a lot of interaction. So as you have questions, as you have thoughts, we'll certainly have breaks for those and be asking you specific things. But please, we're a relatively small group here, so just let us know when you've got some engagement to do. Ideally, we would have had this in a kind of seminar format where we're sitting around tables, but as you can see from this kind of equipment here, we've kind of got a little show and song and dance going on. So this is being recorded for future broadcasts, so we're in this auditorium style. So don't let that dampen the idea that this is supposed to be a conversation and not just simply a lecture at you. Okay, so right now I'm doing the welcome. We've already had a modification. We're not going to do a rival survey. It was too much, so we're not going to do that with you right now. There'll be two things we'll ask you to fill out at the end that'll get us the information that we're after with that. After this, I'll invite Steve up. He's going to give you a quick overview of what the law is and what it says and does and hopefully means for you. And then we'll go into some grounding in the definitions of what is the Holocaust and what is the genocide as understood from the perspective of scholars of the Holocaust and genocide studies. And then my colleague Alan Marcus from the School of Education, he's the director of the Secondary Social Studies program, we'll answer a couple of other questions about why teach the Holocaust and genocide, particularly with primary and secondary students. And then we'll go into, he and I will together talk about some of the typical challenges and opportunities that present themselves as you begin introducing this material into your classrooms in different ways. We'll take a short break. You'll be able to go out and refresh yourself a little bit, but then we'll come right back and have an afternoon focus activity done by two members of the Agamemnon Educational Initiative, Chris Newell and Adonis Spears, focused on genocide right here in Connecticut in the 17th century on the Treaty of Hartford. If you've not seen that document, if you don't know that document, well, you're lucky because you're here today to be introduced to it. It's incredibly important. It'll give you just a taste of the kinds of approaches you can use in your classroom. And then again, if you want to go deeper on any of this, please come back and see us as necessary. Then we're going to wrap up with a working lunch. The catering will arrive sometime around 11. So when we break at 11:30, you'll be able to go out, collect your lunch, and then we'll have the worksheet that's in your packet will give you an opportunity to begin thinking strategically about what's going on in your schools and in your districts and in your classrooms at the moment, and where you want to bring those over the course of the next year, 2 years, 5 years. And then we'll wrap up with a post-workshop survey we ask you to complete, and then you're on your way to your final weeks of summer. So hopefully it will be fairly efficient. Are there any questions or concerns? We did note that the filming's going on. If you do have concerns about that, I mean, most of this is just coming this way. We're not doing crowd shots. You know, maybe if you ask a question, your voice might be on there. But if you have concerns about that, please let me, Steve, someone know, and we'll make sure that when we review the footage that you're not in it. So. All right, great. Well, let's go. Steve, I'll kick it over to you.
Thank you. Yes, if anybody's especially ashamed at the back of your head, I would say, you know, if there's some weird thing there. But so my name's Steve Armstrong. I'm the social studies consultant for the State Department of Ed. And we've been working with a number of groups, wonderful groups, on how you can best teach and how you can best teach what this legislation requires. All right. First off, I think probably most of you have read the legislation. The legislation says that each district must teach the Holocaust and genocide. That's clearly the thing that is a little different, or perhaps, or maybe not different, but just that you want to make sure you know, is the legislation says that this must be done through social studies. So if for the sake of argument, I'm guessing that nobody's doing this, but if your entire curriculum was through literature, by the tone of the legislation, by what the legislation says, it has to be done through social studies. Now, I'm aware that many people, and everybody knows, that many people that do the Holocaust, especially in middle school, it's done through literature. And we're not in any way, nobody's suggesting stopping doing that. As long as, like in your high school class or something like that, the genocide and the Holocaust are taught through history. So if you're doing night in 8th grade and it's working, the legislation would in no way discourage you from doing night in 8th grade. Keep doing that. But again, to repeat myself, what the legislation says is that you must, through history, do Holocaust and genocide. So I had a question, and I've had many questions on the phone just last week, that in our world history course, this was a curriculum supervisor, we do 2 days on the Holocaust in our World War II unit. And we do 1 day on the Armenian genocide in our pre-World War I unit. Am I meeting the legislation? What would you think the answer to that would be, by the way? They're doing 2 days on the Holocaust, and they're doing 1 day on the Armenian genocide. Our answer is, you are meeting, and so if you're worried about that, if that's what you're doing in your district, you're meeting the letter of the law of that legislation.
So it's not worried about death of knowledge.
It's right. But the point I would strongly make, you are meeting the letter of the law of that legislation, but you are certainly, and you can talk to anyone that was involved in that, you are not meeting the spirit of that legislation, if you know what I mean, right? That what the legislation really would ask, and that we would hope, is that this would cause an expansion of Holocaust and genocide education. And because, and as the speakers today and the speakers all week in the different workshops will explain, I mean, it deserves, for a trillion reasons, more than 2 days, right? So the point being that, again, there's the difference between the spirit of the legislation and the letter of the legislation. If your only thought in coming here today is whether you're meeting the letter of the legislation, congratulations, if you're already doing that. But we really, really hope, and you're going to get strategies today on how I think, and because these are fabulous speakers speaking today. So I think what you're going to get out of this is how to do it better. And even if, and you know what we have to do is, and we're going to do this in various ways. If somebody's only got 2 days, suppose somebody's only got 2 days. That's all the curriculum allows. Well, you know what? We want to help you today. What's the best use of those 2 days? If you've got a week, what's the best use of that week? So these are the kind of topics that are going to be discussed today. Just so you know what we're doing at the State Department of Ed, we're co-sponsoring these 4 workshops this week all over the state. We are creating, and it's in process of being created, a web page where there's going to be some marvelous Holocaust and genocide resources, and we're taking some, we're not creating a lot of new stuff. We're going to take from a lot of existing web pages, and we've got our partners helping us do that. And we're going to have in the fall, probably starting late September into October, maybe into November, a 5-part webinar series on teaching the Holocaust and genocide. And we don't have the dates for those quite and the topics quite hammered out yet. But so you'll get information on that as soon as we can. And by the way, if you, at the end, part of the survey at the end, if you have topics that you really want to know more about in a webinar, God, I wish there was a webinar on we wanted to know more about Native Americans and genocide, or more on the Rwandan genocide. Please put that down. And just as importantly, if you have people in your school or university people or people that you know that could be great speakers on these, put that on the survey as well. Because we want to, as always, we want to put out the best things we can put out for you. All right. Glenn Matoma is, he and Alan Marcus and everybody that's speaking today are great speakers. So Glenn, take it away.
Do you want to answer?
Are there any questions on the specific legislation? Please.
Does it specify whether or not the genocide education has to be taught, whether it be high school versus middle school?
Does not.
Okay, so a district can just say we're just going to teach.
It says in the, right, I can't, without remembering the exact wording, it says something like Holocaust. The district, in the district's instructional plan will be genocide and the Holocaust. Please.
Would an elective fulfill the requirements of the law? There's an elective that exists at our high school that offers genocide as a half-year course, but it also does come up in the U.S. history course.
So then that's covering it? I mean,
I'm just wondering, hypothetically, would...
If a school, the only kids that have in a school, happens, is 20 kids in a genocide elective, I don't think that's meeting the spirit of the law. I think the spirit of the law is that every student be exposed to it in the school. Thanks.
Back here.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I teach adult education and the credit diploma program. Does this apply to that program as well?
Do students need this? Do students have to have adult education? Melissa, she's back there. She's my boss. Maybe she can answer that. Melissa, adult education?
Well, I would better need to understand the adult education. So have they, is it a high school?
They receive, I teach additional adult education. So the program that I'm in, they receive a high school diploma from Rockville High.
Then yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the way that I would.
I was going to say the same thing. If there was high school actual equivalency work or high school work, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions just about the legislation? Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Yep.